S. Jaishankar, a few days ago, you gave an interview to the Financial Times where you said, and I quote, if we don't have an order, then you are looking at a very anarchic world, very Hobbesian. But you also said, and this was the headline of the article, in fact, the virtues of the old order, of the old world order, are exaggerated. Why are they exaggerated?
Well, first of all, good to be with all of you and with all of you too. Look, I think we do need an international order, just like we need a domestic order. So if you need a society in a country, you need an international version of that. And it's not just big countries who will benefit if there is no order. I would argue that any country which will take risks, which will have extreme positions, which would, test the system, will actually use disorder to its advantage. I mean, we've seen in our own neighborhood, you don't have to be a big country to be a risky country. I have some smaller neighbors who've done a pretty good job at that. So first of all, I think we should all, understand the importance of an order. Now the old order, it was an order. It was a product of its times. But why I felt that its virtues were exaggerated was, I think the rule maker and the rule taker had somewhat different perspectives, because I also said in the same interview, if you were at the receiving end of some of those rules or the application of those rules, we had issues. And let me give you 2 or 3 practical examples. If you capriciously, if it suits your interest, somebody is good, not good, well, I'll make up my mind how they're going to do. And you apply that order to the same country on the same issues differently. Take Afghanistan. Okay. So the same Afghanistan, the same Taliban, which was an outlier, was welcomed in the Doha process, was welcomed in Oslo. Apparently at that time people were okay with it. Today again we are going back saying, Taliban is doing all these not so good things. Now, if they were doing all of that, what was discussed in Oslo and Doha? You had a British general who described them at that time as, well, they are country boys with their own honor code. Now, so when it suits you to deal with the Taliban, they are okay. When it is not, they're not okay. You are an extremist today, you wear a suit and tie, you are okay. I think I have a problem with that. Let's give you a second example. We all speak of sovereignty and territorial integrity. All of us agree. It's a vital principle. It's a bedrock of global rules. After the Second World War, the longest standing illegal, I would say, presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India. What we saw in Kashmir. Now, we went to the UN. What was an invasion was made into a dispute. So, the attacker and the victim were put on par. Who were the culpable parties? UK, Canada, Belgium, Australia, USA. So, pardon me, I have some question marks on that whole order. Now, I can give you many more. We speak today of political interference. When the West goes out into other countries, it's apparently in pursuance of democratic freedoms. When other countries come into the West, it seems to have a very malign intention. So I think we need, if to have an order, there must be fairness. I agree with you, Dominic. We need a strong UN, but a strong UN requires a fair UN. A strong, a global order must have some basic consistency of standards. We have military coups to our east in Myanmar. They are no. We have them even more regularly to the west. You know where? They seem to be okay. So I think it's important to audit the working of the world for the last 8 decades. and be honest about it, and to understand today that the balances, the shareholdings in the world have changed. We need a different conversation. We need, frankly, in that sense, a different role.
S. Jaishankar, we've heard three different but equally honest expositions of the European idea. When it comes to India, it's often said that, or sometimes said that, India can see all three sides of a bipolar debate. Now, this is a tribute to our dexterity, yes, but is it also a failing? We seem to straddle many boats. G7 as well as the global south, Quad as well as BRICS. We don't take a clear position one way or the other on the Ukraine-Russia war. In all this, what is the authentic Indian position? If I could put it so as a fellow citizen, who are we?
Um, who are we? I would say maybe there are 3-4 dimensions which are important to understand India. First of all, the global south, the decolonization, because it is impossible to appreciate India's global positions without being cognizant of the colonial history. Because when you have lost your independence and struggle to recover it, there is a whole mindset which comes with it. So I would say very definitely global south is one. Two, democratic. Our choice in the 1940s to become a modern democratic polity, I argue we draw on our own traditions in that regard. To be a democratic polity, to be a market economy, to be a society which respects faiths, I think this is also a very important part of our DNA. And sometimes even we in India take it a bit for granted, but many of our positions take this into account. Third, I would argue that in a way we have navigated, adapted to a world which has not always been kind to us, which has not always been accommodating at us, but we have in that sense developed a certain skill of which you make some reference, but a way of really, I would call it both a tactical skill but a long view, that we have a not, a 5-year, 10-year necessarily horizon and understanding of ourselves. And for today, as the most populous country in the world, as the 5th largest economy of the world, perhaps third by the end of this decade, in various other domains, you can see, we are still doing more, we are contributing more. I think the idea of a multipolar world, and where India itself is concerned to think of how to become a leading power at some point of time. I think these are the the global south character, the democratic character, the adapting long view aspect, and a multipolar world towards which we are working. I think if you keep these in mind, a lot of what we do in different situations would make sense. Now, you put your question in a certain way. I understand why you want to elicit a certain reply from me. But I want you to think back, because you began by saying 23, 24, 25, how has it changed? I would argue many of the positions we took in 23 and 24 on this very platform, which at that time were not necessarily liked, today stood the test of time.
True. Thank you. So we have two questions for Mr. Jaishankar, in particular normative power and Quad, and general questions on AI, cybersecurity, which I'd request the rest of the panel to also take in their closing remarks. No, sir. We're done, sir. We're done, sir. Please. We're out of time. So I'll go quickly starting with you, Mr. Jaishankar.
Okay. The characteristics when I spoke about India, global south, democratic, market economy, the long view, I think in a way that I don't want to call it a normative power, but I think we are very representative in many ways. And as the biggest country in the world, I guess our successes or shortcomings will have an impact on everybody else, especially in the global south. On AI, I would of course consider it obviously a clear net plus. On Quad, look, the first meeting, diplomatic engagement of the incoming Trump administration on January 21 was Quad. So I think that tells you what they think of Quad and what all of us think of Quad. And on cyber, I would say the more digital we get, obviously the more important cyber gets. And like anything in life today, obviously it can be weaponized, and because it can be weaponized, it needs to be safeguarded.
Thank you.